Hello, everyone, and welcome along to Unplugged. We spoke a couple of weeks ago ahead of the pre-season. That pre-season is now done. Short but chaotic for St Kilda. It is a special episode as we're all actually playing this week. But yeah, it has been a week of carnage again, with a couple of players getting injured that we didn't necessarily anticipate, on top of those that we're already done. We make the first of 3 trips in 5 weeks to Adelaide. We play the Crows, and we've got Port later, plus gather round against the Giants. And I've got some news on the injury front. Ross Lyon had some interesting things to say on AFL 360, and I have mentioned it a couple of times. He does have a way in press conferences sometimes of either calming you down or sort of giving you the clarity that you might need in that moment. So it might not necessarily be what you want to hear, but it makes sense. And sometimes it is a little bit more positive than perhaps you might be feeling at that time. But Saints in need of a bit of resilience again. A couple of years ago, we were called upon to be resilient, and the club spent the first 2 months of the year on top of the ladder in the face of all of those injuries. So you just never know. That's the beauty of the game, and there is always a way home. If you look at the squad that we'll go out there on Sunday against the Crows, you can actually plot a path to victory. It is obviously difficult without a lot of those stars, but there is always a path that you can plot there. Crows in very good form. 0 injuries as far as I can tell. Chase Jones maybe, but Michelini's got up for them. They look pretty good against Brisbane in the final of the practice matches that they did play. So that is a challenge that awaits, but bit of weather around, still a bit of talent on the field, and you can convince yourself over the course of the week that you are a chance again. I think there is always that realistic notion that it's going to be difficult, but difficult doesn't mean you're going to lose. It just means difficult. So you see what happens when you roll up your sleeves and you go to work. And Nick, we welcome you. I think Ross summed it up that they trained with 6 forwards. They'll probably only have 2 of those on Sunday, but there are some options. Harry Boyd gives us options with Rowan Marshall, and Mason Wood can play forward. So it's about getting that right.
Yeah, I think we should be used to this after the last couple of years. We've gone into round 1 with an injury crisis each of the last 2 years, and this is nothing new to us. We do know that like you said, when you roll the sleeves down, you pull the socks up, and you go and give that effort, that anything is possible. The weather can be the great leveler, and it sounds like there's going to be a bit of rain about. And, obviously it's something that, again, we're used to, as being often in history, the less talented side, or at least the less known talented side, that the weather can be that great leveler, and, it can even things out. But no bones about it, it's going to be tough. For sure, it's going to be tough. You mentioned Harry Boyd, and I think people are trying to wonder, how is that going to work with Boyd and Marshall? Obviously, Marshall's probably going to be a bit underdone anyway. And so maybe having Marshall come out of the square for 85% of the game, maybe pinch hit in the ruck every now and then. But having him mainly forward could be a benefit to him anyway, given he's missed a chunk of the preseason. He's certainly not going to be 100%, but that could be a benefit to both Rowe and to us as a club to get to see Harry Boyd in action, in full senior footy straight away. Let him get the speed of the game straight away, and hopefully that bodes well. Going back to that kind of 2 ruck kind of strategy and tactic that worked so well for us. Going back a couple of years to the Paddy Ryder days.
And you wonder, how many debutants is too many? How many debutants will there be? I mean, Boyd was very competitive. We'll talk about the practice matches in a minute, but his ability to compete against Carlton, it looked like that was going to be a valuable asset. And then you work out whether a forward line of Marshall, Higgins, Caminiti, Wilson, Wood, and 1 or 2 others can get the job done. It's not the worst thing I've ever heard, but Mitch Owens obviously looks like he'll get up, but in terms of debutants, we look at Boyd, we look at Hall being in the mix, Travalia, Boxall, you would think, and then even the Irish lad who looked pretty good, O'Connell, in the first game against Carlton. So you'd think they're all in the frame, but how many is too many?
Well, the other way to look at it is then it's not necessarily a debut now. They've played some of these practice games. The games are against AFL standard sides. So it's just a debut in an official AFL match. So they've shown enough in those games to warrant being selected in the team. And I mean, if we go in with 4 or 5 who haven't played a senior game yet, it may not feel too bad because we've seen the way these guys play footy already, and you think, okay, they've got the skill, they've got the in Boyd's case, he's got the knowledge, he's got basically they can fill positions that we need to fill. So it's not all doom and gloom going, okay, they're basically straight into the team from nowhere. They've played in the senior team already. They're ready to go, it seems. So hopefully it'd be probably good to see a few of them to see in the first few rounds of the season, to give them a go and see what they can give to us, because it's very similar to probably 2 seasons ago now. We had to throw these young guys in and see what they could give us. And in a few cases, they were the players who were like, wow, okay, they're giving us quite a lot. They're the ones putting it all out there, because once you're in the team, you don't want to lose that spot. You want to be the player playing every game once you're in there. So they're the ones fighting a position, and quite often you'll find, yeah, they'll be the ones giving it all. And it'd be great to see. They'll travel over as a group. They'll all go around Adelaide as a group. They'll room as a group. It's a great experience from first up to think, okay, this is the top level. This is the real deal. Let's get out there and let's give it everything, because starting 1-0 away from home, it sets you up. If you go over there and get trounced, all of a sudden you're coming back to Melbourne and you're going, oh, there we go. This hurts. This is a bit painful now, but hey, if we can go over there and pinch one, because I mean, it almost feels like Adelaide's become the new Port Adelaide now, where don't seem to see him over here too much anymore. I was just trying to work 2 of the last 10, 12 games or something that we played him here.
2019 was the last time we played him in Victoria, I think.
Yeah, and even before that, there was a number in a row before that we were over in Adelaide too. So it's becoming pretty common for us to travel there. The rain, I mean, we won't go back to the last 2 times we've played him in the rain. It's a little bit nightmarish, but hopefully this time is a good story. We can fly back with 4 points. The flip side of adversity, of course, is opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And H, you mentioned 2 years ago. I mean, who would have seen going to round 1 that Mitch Owens was going to have the season that he had, right? We, nearly stole the Rising Star Award and probably had a good claim at it as well. He had an incredible season. And so what this does is that it opens opportunity for guys like, I know it's not a debut, but Hugo Garcia to potentially play a full game, in the middle. It opens opportunity maybe for an Angus Hasty to play more footy, for Toby Travali to come in and have a run at it. It's going to give an opportunity to a bunch of guys that, had we had a full squad, and obviously we all wish that we'd had a full squad, but maybe we get to see our first round draft pick, play a full game off half back. Maybe we get to see Hugo Garcia play a full game in the guts and see what he can do for a full game of competitive senior footy. There's so many positives to still take into this game. Now, whether we take positives out of the game, that's yet to be seen. But that is the flip side of adversity, is that there is plenty of opportunity.
Yeah, and as you say, if you win a game like that with the players out, then you look at the injury list and think, Henry's listed as 1 to 3. So does he play next week or the week after? Does King play next week or the week after? Although that always makes me nervous when the King ones linger a little bit. It gives you those sort of Aaron Hamill type vibes. Then you look at Cooper Sharman's probably only going to miss 2, so this one and the next one. Butler, who knows, with an Achilles at his age, it says 1 to 3, but I don't know, my gut feel is that would be more likely to be 3 than 1, but time will tell. A couple of the fascinating ones, Hunter Clarke and Zach Jones, so neither on the injury list at the moment, but neither played in their practice matches. What do they do with them? Do they need a run, or would they pick them effectively fresh? Hunter Clarke in particular obviously signed that contract during the week, so what do they do on that front? Jimmy Webster missed the Port practice match as well, but you'd think he'd be okay. That's probably just a management thing at that stage of his career. So, yeah, and I guess that's the segue, H, into the practice matches. I thought against Carlton, the side we had on paper, I wasn't sure it would stack up, but they were very, very good. And then against Port Adelaide, they struggled, and the mechanics of that were Port Adelaide just controlled it because there was no pressure. I think they took 45 marks to 10 in the first quarter and that's clearly a barometer. If you're a young side, if your pressure's off against a side that's been top four for a while, they're going to completely control things, and that's what happened. So it was really chalk and cheese. Young side good, young side bad. So there's not much more to it than that.
I think one thing a lot of people forgot was Port finished second last year. They were right at the top end for a reason. They're a good side, and they put a pretty strong team out there. They're missing probably a couple of one of their main stars and a couple of other decent players, but the team out there was quite stacked with decent stars. And
why not just say fuck? I hate Port Adelaide.
But yeah, they're probably going to. I mean, it's been a few saying they're going to drop off, but I can't see him dropping off too far this year. So to be up against one of them, a team that should be up there this year in a practice game with a strong team it gave us a good idea of where we're at, what works, what doesn't against what a team that should be like a level that we want to strive to. So Carlton should be good again. We assume probably will be where they were last year, maybe just a bit higher, depending on they could probably drop off a bit if they had a couple of their major players out injured. I think the coverage they have probably isn't as high as Port Adelaide's. So yeah, again, we play well against Carlton, as you said. Get some really good highlights, some really good time and ball movement from these young guys. A lot of run, a lot of carry, a lot of moving it nicely and hitting targets was one thing that we saw quite a fair bit of in that first game. Port put the pressure on us in the second, and we're making mistakes. We're turning it over a lot. Movement into the forward line was quite stagnant, or just kicking it straight to them. It was two very different games. Whether we went in with two different game plans, trying certain things, but that's always going to happen. You're going to find that we are trying things in those games, and we'd probably throw a completely different game style at Adelaide this week compared to what we played against Port Adelaide. So it's going to be a tough one. Obviously, if they go in tall, we've got to cover that. We're going to be interesting to see what selection is on Thursday. But yeah, it's just the travel will be hopefully good for the group. We're going to get, a bit of it out of the way at the start of the year. At least get 2 Adelaide games out early. The last time we played in Adelaide that close to each other in games, we walked away with 2 wins. So nothing says we can't get nice early wins again up in Adelaide and get off to that same start we had 2 years ago. It'd be great to get the young group up and about and get them confident.
Nick, any worries for you on Max King? Obviously, the club saying what they're saying, but it does feel that a round 1 trip to Adelaide was always unlikely. So you're always frustrated some of the language that comes out of it, but the injury lingering a little bit. They said right by round 3 in the article. It says they'll try to get him up for next week, but reading between the lines, that says round 3. Is that what we're anticipating?
Well, it really was the worst kept secret, wasn't it? I think I'm not sure you could find a St Kilda supporter that was expecting Max to play round 1. And like you said, kind of the expectation of round 3, potentially round 2. I mean, if he doesn't play round 2, I'm not sure he's back until after gather round. The travel, all that sort of stuff. What at that point, why do you risk him? If you've gone through all of this, this entire process to rehab and get right and all those sorts of things, what's another week or so?
And you don't want to look at Richmond and go, "Oh, we'll roll 6 blokes back because we expect to beat them." And then
that's right. So. Exactly. Because the potential to lose to do that and then lose to Richmond anyway is still so high because those, let's say you bring 6 of those blokes back and 3 of them re-injure themselves in the first quarter, and all of a sudden you're down to 1 rotation off the bench for the rest of the game. I just don't get the risk. Like, we are clearly playing the long game here. This isn't a short term strategy for this footy club right now, and so regardless of where we are on the ladder, come round 3 or 4. I just don't see the point in rushing a guy like Max King, who you've signed for the next half a decade, longer. Why risk him for an extra week to play in Adelaide when you can give him the extra week's rest, get him super right and ready to go, and play him when we're at home.
Yeah. And H, your views on, do you think they play Hunter Clarke on the back of that? And any worries on Schoenmaker, given our injuries, not getting a game in either practice match? Probably a bit of a sign that there's something that's not right there.
Yeah, I had Hunter picked in my initial side, thinking he would probably be up. It's an experience thing with him. He brings that experience in a team over possibly a young guy again. So then you go, okay, it was the benefit of playing a younger guy, maybe either starting Clarke on the bench or on even the sub, like have him just play half to quarter of a game just to get him back into it as well and getting up to speed. It's which one's probably got more benefit in it? There might be the better benefit in having a bunch of younger guys in there, and then to look at who's going how and that sort of thing in the match, and then swap him out for Clarke with the experience. So there's a couple of ways to go there. Showmakers, is he a possibility to play? Is that the question?
No, I don't think so. I was just more worried about the fact that with our injuries and our defensive frailties that he was playing for Sandringham. I think that the biggest knock on him last year was maybe the lack of physical competitiveness. Like, he can kick.
Yeah.
In his debut against Brisbane, he ran under the footy. He got knocked out of the way a few times, and I just get the feeling that they don't like that.
It falls into that same getting experience category, I guess. So it's he's probably more likely to take over, I guess, one of those running defenders when they sort of drop out of, say when a Webster finishes up, he's probably more likely to take over a kind of a role he plays at times. I mean, by that stage, there may be more of a physical defender to him. There might be more of a, I guess, more of a role, and he knows more what he's there to do compared to what he does now. So, again, you're only ever going to get AFL experience in AFL, and we probably have to play him at some stage to be able to get that into him. So it's a real case of, when do you do it? Do we do it now when we're maybe a little bit light on, or do we try and squeeze him in and push out someone later on if things are okay? So it's is the opportunity now when we are sitting 0-0 and just we roll the dice and see how it goes. And I mean, as you say, he's got the skill. He's got that raking left foot that we love the disposal. We just tell him to get out there and work on that defensive side of it. There's a couple of big forwards this week to have a go at it if he wants to throw himself around a little bit.
A lot of people saying that he's kind of the natural replacement to Josh Battle, and I can understand that perspective, but the Josh Battle that we've seen over the last 2 years is kind of that nearly, all Australian caliber, third man up defender, whatever you want to call that role. Josh Battle wasn't that Josh Battle when he was 19. He was a lightly framed, tall key forward at that stage who could kick and he could take a mark, but he certainly wasn't a third man up in defence. He certainly wasn't a key defender at that stage. And even saying that, Josh was probably a bit more physical already at that stage, even though he was kind of lightly framed, like Schoenmaker is, but he was probably a bit more physical, had a bit more grunt about him anyway. But But like I said, even that stage, he wasn't a defender. He was a key forward and had to learn that role. And it took him a long time. I know that a lot of guys are upset about how we lost Battle in the off season and all those sorts of things. But it took a long time for Josh Battle to become that version of Josh Battle. And we know that it takes these bigger guys a while to develop. They're bigger bodies, they're taller, they take time to fill out and put on that muscle. All of those sorts of things are really important. And I'm not sure that right now Ari Schoenmaker is the natural replacement for Josh Battle. He's probably more of a replacement for someone like, again, very different player, but that running halfback, a Jimmy Webster type or a Liam Stocker type, someone who brings the ball out of defence rather than someone who's matching up on a key tall forward.
Someone like Tom Highmore would have been useful on the list potentially as that type of coverage. Bob Khan asked that question off our socials. Hopefully that kind of addresses that in regards to Schoenmaker. A couple more listener questions before we do wrap up ahead of round one. Had the opportunity to also speak with RAPH CLARKE, so watch for that one to drop as our first guest of season 2025.
Yeah, and that was probably the frustrating thing, and that's what made me lose a lot of my respect for Scott after that had happened. And the thing was, like, he never actually, when he was coaching us, I didn't really hear much feedback from him and what I needed to work on or what did he need from me and whatnot. And I'd always have to go see the backline coach at the time, and there'd never be any feedback from bloody Scotty at the time to say, it all came from Danny. So that's one thing. Yeah, then to be up home on holidays back here in Darwin and then all of a sudden, my manager, he said, "Oh, look, St Kilda are going to list you, just giving you the heads up." And I said, "Oh, no worries, I'll wait for the phone call." Then, like you mentioned, a text message popped through and I was like, wow, like after 9 years of, I've given him everything I could possibly, and the battered up body I've got now, you expected a bit more than that. So
the 85 game 9-season grand final representative from 2009. Steve and Cam, I'll combine their two questions. Nick, out of the 6 draftees in the 2024 crop, who do you think will have the best 2025? Cam asks, is Boxall a lock for round one? Putting that question in there because he might even be the answer.
Well, he might be the answer. I think he is a lock for round one. I'm not sure he's a lock for best 22 or best 23 every week. But he's certainly shown a little bit. And my biggest concern for round one is if we lose the midfield battle, and if we lose it badly, then with their big, powerful forwards and our kind of undermanned defense at the moment, it could turn into something pretty nasty for us. And so I think someone like Boxall could come in and give us a bit of grunt, bit more defensive pressure. We saw what he did to Paddy Cripps in that first game against Carlton. A bit of grunt, bit of athleticism, someone who can get in and under and put his body on the line, and all those sorts of things, which can only be a benefit at this stage when we're looking to win the ball. And the best way to keep the ball out of the hands out of those powerful key forwards is to win the ball in the middle and try and keep it down our forward line. So I can certainly see Boxall playing round one. I think ultimately Toby Travalia has to be the guy that we say is likely to have the best 2025. I mean, the kid's he's a special kind of player, right? Like he gets it. He gets it from the beginning. He's a hard worker. He trains just as hard as anybody. He understands footy. He's got great footy IQs. He's great skilled. He's got a good size already about him. Can play off halfback and can get involved at almost every line. We saw in that Carlton game, the goal that he kicked late, being able to come in and impact. Whether it's off halfback, whether it's through the middle, whether it's kicking a long goal from the wing. This guy can impact in so many ways, and he's a special talent. And I think that not so much to be silly to pick anyone else, but he's kind of the obvious choice, I think, at this stage.
Yeah, and hopefully this week on that earlier question, Steele, McRae, Garcia, Windhager, Burns potentially can compete in the middle and neutralise and maybe send it our way with some of that physicality. And one H from Jennels89. I think I've pronounced that correctly. From which player from the last Ross era would you prefer to inject for the first 6 weeks of this year with our injury concerns? Well, there's a few nominations, obviously, that you would have from that era in each zone. So I thought of Sam Fisher for his defensive capabilities and height. I thought about Del Santo for polish in the middle of the ground. But I think the answer is clearly Nick Riewoldt. I think having him float across centre forward at the moment with what we're missing would just entirely change the dynamic of that setup for mine. There's a few others we could mention, but how do you see it?
Yeah, and even if you're looking for, like, Fisher was a good, probably second up running defender, that sort of thing. Even if we're looking for someone who's a little bit bigger for this forward line, that sort of thing this week, you even go towards Maxi Hudson possibly, or he was sort of on the tail end of that group. But if you go back a little bit into his sort of his mid-career kind of thing, that's the sort of play you'd love down there at the moment. In the middle, either Lenny or someone that give him great leadership in that, and you could throw Dell in there as well if you wanted. An all-rounder, I'd probably jump on someone like Goddard. He's in the box probably this week, but you'd love him. Yeah, you'd love that kind of player out there, just a bit of leadership and a bit of all-round ability. Just he could move up forward, he can run down back, he can run through the middle. Just provides many options. But yeah, I mean, hopefully, we get that movement out the centre that you're talking about. And if we were, then you'd be going, okay, if we can guarantee plenty of ball and plenty of straight kicks to him. But yeah, Riewoldt would be great too. But he could pick off many of those kicks that were a bit off and actually get to them. So it'd be a nice addition. Any of those players, it would lift any part of the ground quite a lot.
Those four, I think you've hit the nail on the head, H. I think when I saw that question, I was like, it has to be Nick Riewoldt. It has to be Nick Riewoldt. His answer 1A, but then there's 3 1Bs. There's Lenny Hayes, Max Hudson, and Brendan Goddard, just for their ability to fill a hole that we have so many of at the moment. You'd love to have Max Hudson in this defence at the moment. You'd love to have Lenny Hayes in this midfield with Jack Steele and Jack McRae, and the young kids around them, and Goddard who can fill a gap up forward, can go down back and pinch hit in the middle. They're the obvious 4, but
so midfield missed the run that Ali Montagna might provide.
Yeah, I'm not sure run is our issue. To be fair, I love Joey. Joey's one of my favourite players to watch, and but I think he's probably just behind those couple. If we're talking about midfield pressure and winning the ball at the coalface to try and stop it going down their forward line, then Lenny Hayes is the obvious one. If you're looking for that key defender to take one of the gorillas, then it's got to be Max. And like I said, Goddard, and you, like you said, Goddard has that versatility to pretty much play anywhere that we need him and have an impact. But it's got to be Rui. It has to be Rui.
Yeah, you could see him finding a way to take 14 marks and kick 5, even in a game where it's
by
not
half
going.
Time.
Exactly. Not going too well for us. But we gear up for Sunday. It is all here. It's been a slightly arduous build-up, but that tends to be the way it goes. There is a saying for that somewhere. But we'll build for Sunday, and fingers crossed that we can pull off what would actually be an incredibly memorable result and entirely change the dynamic of the early part of the season, and certainly change the narrative. And you hit the nail on the head. It said that if there is adversity, it means that there is opportunity. Follow us on all of the socials. Give us a rating, preferably 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening to this on. And hopefully we're talking next week ahead of the Geelong clash in round 2 after a famous victory.